Hello and welcome to the PR Squeeze, a new podcast brought to you from the Public Relations Department here at the Newhouse School at Syracuse University. I'm Tony D'Angelo. I'm a professor of practice in public relations and chair of the PR department here, and I'm excited to introduce this podcast series. PR Squeeze is going to bring you different perspectives and different insights from leaders from totally different sectors of the communications profession, and it's all so that we can learn from them. They're going to analyze professional issues and challenges and current events. Our intent is to keep these episodes brief and incisive, and we'll welcome your feedback and suggestions anytime. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce one of Newhouse's own, our distinguished alumnus, Jim Olson. Jim has served as CCO at United Airlines and led global communications at Starbucks and US Airways. Earlier, he worked for We Communications, used to be Wagoner Edstrom, and Nissan, and he was most recently CCO at Avalo Airlines, which is really the first new airline in the United States in 15 years. Jim recently relaunched his Hangar 6 strategic storytelling consultancy, a runway for finishing his crisis management book, his motivational speaking, and strategic comms coaching. His career has literally traversed the world. In addition to the prestigious positions that I mentioned, he has spent time teaching, advising, and speaking. For 3 years, get this, he visited and lived in 17 countries on 5 continents. He served as executive in residence at the African Leadership University in Mauritius. He was a professor of practice here at Newhouse, was a colleague of mine, and as interim CCO at Steward Healthcare. He wrote a leadership column for Fortune magazine and Fast Company, and he'll be speaking on leadership at the Page Society annual conference in Dallas at the end of September. Welcome, Jim Olson. Always great to connect with you.
Tony, always great to see you, and thanks for inviting me on the PR Squeeze. I'm really excited about this new endeavor you're taking on.
So are we, and what a fitting guest you are. I mean, you were an undergraduate student here. I know you went on to get your master's, an MBA actually, at USC. I'm among the many that have learned about leadership from you in your writing and your speaking. So I'd like to kick things off because I know that you talk about being a consequential leader and consequential leadership. Can you describe that a little bit for us? And why you think that now is a particularly consequential time for communications leaders?
Yeah, well, I think it's very fitting that actually the title for your podcast is the PR Squeeze, right? Because in many ways, as leaders and communicators, we feel squeezed, right? Like it's like if you go scuba diving or snorkeling, you go down under, you feel the pressure of the water. If you're up in the air at a high altitude climbing a mountain, you can feel the pressure coming in around you. And when I talk to leaders and even junior and mid-level folks, there's just a huge kind of squeeze or kind of this kind of atmospheric pressure going on around us that's caused by a lot of different things in our world. There's geopolitical anxieties going on, there are environmental impact. We're having more fires and more hurricanes and more earthquakes, it seems, than ever before. The world we live in today kind of reminds me of that locker room talk that Al Pacino gave from Any Given Sunday, right? We're living in a world, or we're playing a game of inches, where the margin for error, one step too fast to the left or too slow to the right, can mean game over. And the same is very true in our world of communications and business and nonprofits and education.
Absolutely. So what in your view is consequential leadership then? Understanding that the stakes are high, the time pressure is there, the public opinion pressure is there?
I think it's that understanding, but it's also the how we show up as leaders, right? So I like to talk about consequential leaders as having five virtues, or I call them the 5 virtues of consequential leaders. So these 5 virtues of consequential leadership are, first and foremost, conviction, followed by courage, collaboration, compassion, and above all, connection. The first one is conviction. And what I mean by that is a sense of purpose, a sense of shared purpose, a sense of mission. And as leaders, it's our job to not only believe in where we're taking our organization, but more importantly to inspire others to believe in that mission and bring them along with us. So that sense of conviction, right? And then the second really important one is courage, right? So we see this all around us every single day where leaders, CEOs, and communications executives and others are having to make these consequential decisions that can really impact the stock of a company or even the long-term viability of the organization, or even our own jobs, right? Or the jobs of the leaders that we're there to support. And so that courage to not only put forward that mission, but actually to stand behind it and live by it and make decisions that are filtered through it. The third is collaboration. The problem is a leader. So it's this idea that as a consequential leader, we have to know how to collaborate, not only among the others within our organizations and cross-functionally up and down, but also across our industry, across our countries, and globally if we're operating in a global context. That collaboration is really important because there used to be that saying, that when the recruiting ad for the Army, like, an army of one, right? But we live in a world with these consequential problems and challenges we're facing, and even the opportunities. So if you look at the flip side, the consequential opportunities that are ahead of us through technologies like AI, the medical breakthroughs that are on the horizon, and so forth, these take collaboration. And so the great leaders and the consequential leaders out there are the ones that collaborate. Now, the fourth virtue of consequential leadership is compassion. We live in a world again, where there's a lot going on, and we live in a world that's starving for purpose and meaning and direction and connection. And so as leaders, we have to make tough calls, but we also have the opportunity to make a positive impact and make the world a better place and make lives better for the people around us, for not only our employees and our colleagues, but for the communities that we serve. And so that sense of compassion is really important. And the fifth virtue of consequential leadership is connection. And I mentioned that there is a starving for connection throughout our society. Whether you're young or old or middle age, there's a hunger out there for connection. So as leaders, we have that opportunity to not just communicate. There's a difference between communicating and connecting. And so the difference between good and great leaders are those that know the difference between just communicating and truly connecting with their stakeholders.
That's certainly a consequential difference, no doubt about it. Jim, it seems that resiliency in the face of tumultuous professional and personal challenges is a major theme in your work. How's that played out for you over the course of your career?
Yeah, well, resilience, I think, is so much more. A lot of people think of resilience as just endurance, the ability to kind of keep going, which is certainly very important. But to me, and I think for consequential leaders, resilience is about something even bigger, and even a bigger, more important word, which is resolve. It goes back to that idea of living up to the mission and the shared sense of purpose that our organizations have. And so it's that resolve to not only keep going, which is what resilience is, but to show up every single day, not only for ourselves, but more importantly for the people around us, to show up for that and never stop believing in what's possible.
Yeah. It also strikes me, Jim, that part of the message of resilience is also the inevitability that we're going to be challenged in our careers, even severely. And I'm wondering your opinion, is the inevitability of that discouraging, or is that just a realistic depiction of the challenges that we can expect to face?
I think the idea of resiliency and resolve has always been there. As leader, I think back to, I'm dating myself back to even my 20s and the leaders I worked with at companies like Nissan, and I worked with some great leaders there. They all showed resilience, right? It was just different times, different challenges, and in many ways consequential challenges back in those times too. So I think this idea of resilience and resiliency and resolve is really not that new. It's a bedrock virtue of being a really effective and successful leader.
Yeah. You know, your own career, Jim, has encompassed so many practice areas, so many industries, so many geographies. Can I put you on the spot for a moment and ask you for the greatest or perhaps the most consequential leadership lesson that you've gained in your career?
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about those kind of five virtues of consequential leadership, and I was kind of thinking to myself the other day, like, why have I been tossed so many of these challenges in my life and my career? But I think one that really stands out where I saw, all five of these virtues really dovetail together in a matter of 48 hours was a very tragic ISIS terrorist attack on Starbucks flagship store in Jakarta, Indonesia in January of 2016. It was a horrific attack. A suicide bomber went into our store and literally blew himself up. And then there were other terrorists outside the store that were essentially assassinating folks that were escaping from the store, which was just a horrific moment in time, not only for Starbucks, but more importantly for that entire nation and the community where our store served. I saw in Howard Schultz, who was our CEO, we were actually in India at the time, touring Asia when all of this broke down. And I ended up parachuting into Jakarta that evening to get a sense of what was going on. And Howard was chomping at the bit. He wasn't running from the fire. He wanted to get on the ground as well in Jakarta, to be there with our customers, to be there with our employees, to help provide the leadership and I go back to the idea of compassion, right? Provide that compassion and that was needed. And so in doing that, his interest in providing that compassion illuminated those other attributes that I talked about. His compass headed towards compassion, but in parachuting into Jakarta within 48 hours of a massive terrorist attack was courageous in so many ways. It was living up to our values. So he showed conviction and demonstrating our mission. He showed collaboration because as the CEO, he deputized a lot of us to collaborate with law enforcement and first responders that were on the ground there. And finally, connecting. One of my most memorable moments in my career was watching Howard stand up in front of 2,000 of our employees 48 hours after one of our stores was targeted and attacked, and stand up and reassure them that everything was going to be okay and that we're going to rebuild that store and make it the best Starbucks in the world. And not only just walk off stage and leave and go back to his hotel room, but spend probably another hour to 2 hours literally walking the room, shaking hands, hugging, and talking to and just consoling those employees.
Yeah. What a huge impact his presence must have had. That alone, the idea that he would be there so immediately and make that personal commitment, that speaks untold volumes, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, Tony, because he opened his speech that day. I don't remember a lot of the words. It's like that Maya Angelou quote, right? Like you forget what people say, but you remember how they make you feel. Well, I certainly remember how I felt that, on that trip down there during that event. But I do remember his opening line, and he said, when I told friends and family and colleagues that I was coming to Jakarta to be with all of you, they told me not to come. And he said I had to come, and I'll come again and again. And that's not only courage. That is the pinnacle of consequential leadership.
Wow, just a fantastic example. Jim, so let me ask you to foreshadow a little bit. I know that you have a book coming out. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. No, thanks for the plug, Tony. I'm super excited about it. I actually, after 5 years at Avelo, which you mentioned, which is America's newest airline, I parted ways to finish my book. I had started it while I was there, but I realized I just really needed the time to push it across the goal line. And so very close. It's going to be coming out in either end of this year or more likely very early next year. And it's called Tailwind, a compass for turning your setback story into your comeback legacy. And you'll appreciate this. It's a crisis management book, but it's crisis management with a capital C and a capital M, because it's really designed for everybody. A lot of people say, who is your book for? And I truly, and I think once you read it and people read it, they'll understand why I say for everybody, because it's everyone. We all face crises and storms in our personal and our professional lives. I don't care, what walk of life you're in or what level of leadership you're in. This book really is going to speak to you. It's not a memoir about Jim Olson. It's a compass for helping folks navigate the storms in their personal or their professional lives. And it's got the stories of 12 other consequential leaders in there as well. The forward is by Oscar Munoz, my boss at United Airlines, who went through his own consequential medical turnaround story. So I think people just really, beyond the stories I share of my journey, it's got these really, I think, transformative experiences that these 12 other individuals share as well.
Well, knowing what you have achieved in your career, and also knowing the personal challenges that you have had, and that you're going to discuss in your book and in your speaking, I think that the dedication that you've shown in sharing this is an inspirational message. So thank you for that. Tell us where we can get more information from you about the book and about your introduction of it.
Yeah, so I've created a website. The URL is comebackcompass.com, and would really encourage you to go there. There's more about the book there. You can sign up for an email alert that'll let you know, give you updates on when you can pre-order or when you can actually buy it. I'll be putting updates like the cover design and excerpts from the book up there. You can read some of the early praise that the book is getting. I've sent manuscripts out to some of the leaders I've worked with, people like Howard Schultz and Michelle Goss, who's the CEO at Levi Strauss, and Ariana Huffington, Oscar Munoz, and others. So, if you want to kind of see what some of the folks are saying about the pre-read of the book, you can check that out there too.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Jim, for your thoughts and your insights today. You continue to lead and inspire. We will have you back here on this podcast before too long. I'd also like to thank our audience. We want the juice to always be worth the PR squeeze. We hope you'll follow us on all the popular podcast platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and the Orange Television Network, or OTN, has an app that's available. Feel free to reach out to me with your ideas and questions, and go Orange.